Thank you for tuning into Growing Tech Fast, the condensed podcast in which conversations about growing SaaS startups are had with those who have grown them. Now, today I have the privilege of being joined by Chris Dickey, who is the founder and CEO of tech startup Visably. Chris, great to have you, and thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
Thanks, Connor. Great to be here.
Cool. Well, Chris, look, where I always like to start, just to give our guests a flavour, primarily actually of yourself and your background, if you want to talk a bit about that, and then that might lead us nicely into hearing a bit more about Visably as well. But yeah, first and foremost, tell us a bit more about Chris Visably.
Sure. So I guess my story is I'm a career marketer. I'm a non-technical founder, which is an interesting journey in and of itself. But I spent my entire career, 17 years so far in the marketing profession. I've been in-house. I worked for startups. I've worked for 10-figure companies. And in the last decade or so, I've been running my own PR agency, and the agency focuses on brand communications, and that was really how we became really fascinated with the intersection between kind of earned media and search engines, and then more, in a more broad sense, is really any third-party validation or any third-party mention of your brand in search. And so, as we know, people talk about other people's brands all the time, whether it's in a podcast or on a blog or or a review or a news site, or even could be e-commerce or an affiliate site. Those are all third-party sites, and frankly, what I saw was this real gap in how we measured and managed brands in search, whereas we have great tools to manage how our website's performing. We have great tools to manage how our ads are performing. There's no other tools out there. Those are the only two sets. So, but frankly, there's a lot more happening in the ether of the internet and search across these kind of third-party platforms, which are really important to influencing how people make purchase decisions and start their buying journey.
Fantastic. Cool. Well, thank you, Chris, for the overview, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of time actually to dive into a bit more detail. Something I'm really keen to explore is I guess the uniqueness of what Visably does, which really struck me in our conversation. I want to talk around a bit around that, and I guess category creation as a founder and how that's been. But first and foremost, I just want to hark back actually something you mentioned, which is in terms of your background, you were a non-technical founder, and obviously you commented on how that is in the minority. So I'm keen to understand, actually, Chris, just as a non-technical founder, like how have you found that? Like what's maybe the specific challenges you face because of that, and maybe also it's had its advantages. Just talk to me a bit around that.
Yeah, I think the challenges are manifold. I think as a non-technical founder, you have to find a co-founder who complements and brings that kind of technical expertise to the table. Fundamentally, we're dealing in software here, and I can't build software. I just don't. I mean, maybe I could learn it, but it's not something that would be worth the investment at this point. The value that I bring to the table is understanding the core pain points and the customer, and the UX and the UI, and understanding in this circumstance, I am the customer. Like, I'm this agency owner. I recognize this pain point within our agency and for our clients, and we sought out to build a software solution for it. The really hard thing, though, is that ultimately, like, I think in a marketing situation, I can jump into any role within our marketing agency and I can basically fix something. Like, I see somebody struggling, I can jump in, I can help them, I can mentor them, I can get the account back on track or whatever needs to happen. I can't do that with software. So if the software team is struggling, or we're having a hard time getting over a hurdle somewhere, I just can't jump in and fix it, which has been a learning experience for myself. Because I'm typically of the adage that you just kind of roll up your sleeves and put your head down and and bang out the work. But in this case, you absolutely have to rely on other people to do it for you, which is a really good lesson to learn in life, honestly. Like is to partner with the right people. It's you what everyone talks about, what VCs talk about, what angel investors talk about, what other founders talk about is the importance of team, and it cannot be understated. And that is like, it is not a one person show, right? Like you have to put together an incredible team, and that team, you have to trust that team because you're giving them your child to build, and you have to assume that everyone on that team has the same dedication and um, commitment that you do. And so, I think putting together the right team is probably the hardest part, but if you have that team in place, then I think you are you're in an incredible place. It is actually an incredible journey to have a great team.
Cool. I love that, Chris. You talked there around, interesting, obviously being your own customer must have had its very
Yeah.
unique advantages coming for that, obviously you said owning that agency as well. But I think what you really touched on towards the end is, as you said, the need to create and build a good team. And I loved the phrase giving them your child to build essentially and to grow. I guess that was interesting because obviously there will be other like non-technical founders out there, or even maybe technical founders who are looking for that killer team, that killer partnership. So if you don't mind sharing, how did you go about then finding your co-founder? That is obviously something that's really, really crucial to this enterprise. So what was your process for doing that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways that you can find, team members. Obviously, you guys help with that as well. You know a little bit about that. I think in terms of when you're starting out at such a small level, you really need to work through your network. It's not worth putting an advertisement out saying, "Hey, I'm looking for someone to start a company with." It is a incredibly intimate experience with a person. You need to have rapport with a person. You need to have a little bit of history with a person, um, and the sheer amount of trust that has to go into that relationship. It's not something that you can build and identify through an interview, right? It's something that is built over time and years. And I would say that even if you don't know the person yourself, but a close friend of yours knows the person, I think that's good enough. And I think that, I find, again, those like personal endorsements and using that network to be an incredible way to kind of, I think, start to put together the foundational pieces of your team. And then eventually, you do use all those kind of other recruitment services because you need to scale.
Sure.
But those first few people are super critical.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like laying the foundations, right, to build upon almost. If the foundations are rocky, it's going to be an uphill battle from there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I've done it all. Like I've tried pretty much every way to bring somebody into an organization. Um, the most foolproof way is through your own network, and I understand it. It's incestuous. I get it, but it's also safe, and
Yeah.
and I think being safe, and finding the right people and is is worth it at this point, because you get the wrong partner and you're simply not going to succeed. You'll burn your money, you'll have fights, you won't get the job done. It's too risky.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. The power of network, and yeah, you said trust. The trust that comes with that as well. And there's a lot to be said for playing it safe too, which is particularly at that early stage. So I want to move on to Chris. Something I mentioned at the very start there that I wanted to get into was obviously what Visibly do is, as you pointed out at the start, it is very unique, right? And it's almost, I don't know, would it be fair to say it's within a category of its own? Is that fair?
We are building a category of our own here, and just to kind of like tell your audience what we do is we're most closely aligned with the SEO kind of software stack. In SEO, what we do that's fundamentally different from SEO is that we do content analysis rather than link matching. In an SEO circumstance, the SEO engine will pull up the search engine results page, and they'll look across all the links on that return and say, are these links yours, yes or no? And they basically track that on a regular basis. What we're interested in is where does your brand exist in the search, you know? And the only way to do that is do content analysis and do it across everybody and go deeper than just the first page. We're also going to look at all the pages that are linked to on the first page. So I like to say we see everything that customer sees, and we try to deconstruct that customer kind of influence process. It's because what's kind of fun about search is that search is like the number one most influential, well-used customer acquisition platform in the world, right? Like if you have a question, you ask it to Google effectively.
Yeah.
and then because Google has like 90% of the world's market share in search.
Yeah.
And then from there, you have very predictable click patterns. You click somewhere on the first half of the first page, usually one of the top 3 results. And, so you have very limited real estate to reach these customers. And I love SEO. I'm a huge fan of SEO. It's just like ridiculously challenging to get your website in those top 3 positions on the page to actually reach a customer. And so this is where it really behooves brands to deploy kind of omni-channel or multi-channel strategies. And what I've seen as an agency person is that a lot of brands do deploy these strategies already. It's like they're already engaging a PR team. They already have a whole e-commerce growth management team. They already have an ad team, And what I see is that these teams just simply aren't aligned. They're not working on a single set of metrics, and they don't really have very good marching orders, if you will. Like they don't understand where their targets are. They're throwing a lot of spaghetti against the wall and hoping that it sticks. What if we could just streamline all that and identify all the places where you have blind spots, all the places where your customers are beating you, and prioritize those in a multi-channel or a multi kind of channel sort of fashion. And then all of a sudden, I think the goal with it, in our opinion, is to be everywhere your customers are looking for answers. So if somebody's searching for a question, it's not enough just to have your website, somewhere on that page. There's still 9 other results on that page, right? So how do you be everywhere? How do you be ubiquitous? Which means that you do then, focus your PR on it. You focus, make sure your e-commerce is fully optimized and that you're present on all those landing pages. You can make sure that your affiliate program is working really well and that you're very visible there. Those are all the kind of pieces to the pie that you need to be sewn together to have a really dominant brand position.
Fantastic. Thanks for the overview. And yeah, it's so interesting. Just like reflecting myself, I never really noticed. I don't think I've ever got to the bottom half of a Google page, and certainly not to the not to the second page.
No, you're absolutely right, and the stats show it, and it's just proof in the pudding. I mean, there's the bottom link on the first page receives around 1 to 2% of all the traffic for the keyword, and this in all the pages thereafter receive also around 1 to 2% in aggregate. So you're talking 99 to 98% of all the clicks are happening on that first page, and about 70% of them are happening on the first half of the first page. So again, super valuable customer. They're like, where else are you going to find these people that are looking for these very specific needs? However, very limited real estate to reach them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you are then, as you said, Chris, you're creating this category. Now, I'm really interested because what a lot of companies do, or the vast majority of startups that I've founded, right, have identified a particular area, a particular sub niche, and they've seen, there might be a better way to do this, right? Or they end up in a competitive landscape of an already existing category. So I'm really interested from your side how it's been the first few years and that journey of actually trying to be a category creator. How's that been for you?
It's a heavy lift. I think we're trying to move the bow of a very large ship. And ultimately, my goal is to get marketers to look at search and realize that it's a multi-channel, play for them. It's SEO is just a super, narrow piece of that pie. And to be successful, you have to do a whole lot more than just SEO. And so and ultimately the goal is to move the goal line from saying, how do I improve my website position in search, to how do I improve my brand's position in search. So that's how we define it. To do that is a ton of education. Nobody knows we exist, so we have to put out really useful, interesting blogs and research pieces. Hopefully, do some thought leadership. Also, put out kind of, I think, free tools that help people along the way. And so there's all these kind of pieces that we want to share with people. We want to show people our data output. We want to show them what we can do for them, and we have to make those barriers fairly low for them to explore that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, interesting. As you said, I think the first words were something like it's a heavy load. that doesn't
It's a heavy
surprise
lift.
me.
Yeah,
Heavy lift. Yeah,
yeah.
that doesn't surprise me at all. So what I'm really interested in actually is I'm sure many folks out there who are, naturally curious, and I'm the same. I get a load of ideas come into my mind, right? And this is obviously one that came into yours at some point. And not only is it like I could do something a better way, this is actually a whole new way of doing something right and creating a category. So what I'm really interested in, Chris, is what led you from that idea to execution. And what I mean by that is, like, obviously you've thought through this. What kind of like sanity checks, what kind of like mental checks, what kind of mental checks were you doing to be like, is this a good idea to actually, because I know you were working at the time when you came up with this, right? What was like, actually, yes, this is something
Yeah,
we can pursue and could be successful?
I think the biggest thing for me was that we were kind of experimenting with our own agency for a couple of years, and so we have real world clients, we have real world account managers, and we're like, hey, what if we do this thing with PR and search, and what if we start targeting our PR, pivoting it toward being successful in search, and then and what happens when we measure it and kind of present it to our clients in that way. And it became the most valuable, interesting thing that we did for our clients. Then we ended up, the word kind of got out that we were good at it, and then we started getting new clients because of it. And then the agency is like double, tripled in size. And so that was the original gut check, saying, "Holy shit, somebody should do this," and like it does. And I think the other bigger question to me was like, does this really not exist? And honestly, I was in denial that it didn't exist. I was like, okay, this has got to exist, right? And honestly, that Connor, the simple question that we're trying to answer here is, where does my brand exist in search? Can you please tell me where my brand exists in search, and can we measure it, and can we improve it? And nobody answers that question right now. It turns out it's kind of hard thing to do. So that might be part of it. And I also think that a big part of it is that in marketing in particular, we're so darn siloed in our disciplines. We're all trying to get people to see the product and sell the product. That's the goal of the marketing department at the end of the day. But we're so specialized, and we don't see outside of our silo very easily. In fundamentally, search engine results is like this multi-channel sandbox. Like I said before, like everybody is playing in the same sandbox. But it's just rare in the marketing world to have that kind of cross-functional team collaboration. And it shouldn't be, but it is. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of a big reason why no one has done this yet. And I think also, when you're an entrepreneur, you just kind of have to have, there's a certain amount of like optimism that you have to kind of like have, because you're like, I know this can work. I feel in my truest sense in my heart like this is gonna go. And there's a million reasons why somebody could tell you it's not, and people do tell you that all the time. But I think you also get enough support along the way, and you see enough kind of progress and benchmarks and uptake in the ideas that it keeps you going.
Okay, cool. I see the importance there of self-belief, right, Chris? And not just
Yeah,
self-belief, but belief in the product, belief in the idea that you want to, the
all of it.
conceptualization.
Yeah,
Yeah.
belief that you can do it,
Mm,
belief that you're the right person to do it, and belief that the product itself has a product market fit.
sure. Would that be like, I guess, a good checklist for anyone out there who's currently thinking of an idea that they might want to put into action? Is that, would you say, a solid checklist of things to run through?
I think those are all kind of mental checklists. I think there's like a bigger checklist though of like, am I rooted in reality at all? I think, in my case, we tested this out with clients for years, right? So we had this real world kind of like proof of like we were like this little petri dish where we were incubating this idea and we were throwing it out in real world conditions, and the response back was really amazing. um, I think that entrepreneurs can get in trouble when they're not absolute experts in the domain that they're trying to that they're trying to influence.
Hmm.
So you just what I tell everyone to do is like do what you know. you know it's like if this is what you know and you know it backward and forwards, and you see this very clear pain point and you can clearly articulate it and you know exactly who's going to benefit from it, then go for it. If you're not there yet, you're not articulating it, you haven't played in this category like endemically for years, then you probably might be worth like spending some more time researching it and getting more familiar with the space.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Getting super ingrained, I guess, within the very world in which you're going to be trying to operate in as an entrepreneur, obviously. So, okay, I'm really interested to hear, Chris. I think it's been Visibly's been around just over a couple of years, right?
Yeah, we've been in development for effectively 2 years.
Sure.
We launched a beta product last year,
Nice.
and then we are just coming out right now with an enterprise product. So
Interesting.
really excited about that.
Nice. Okay, cool. And in that product development phase, particularly as yourself as a non-technical founder, what would you say is the biggest maybe lesson that you've learned over the last, kind of, I guess, going through that process over the last couple of years? What's it taught you most?
Yeah, I'm going to circle back to the idea of team again.
Nice.
Is take the time to find the right people at the beginning. And you might be you might rush the process because you're excited and you feel like you find the right person, but just look like and make sure that you have a really strong skill set around you and you have that enthusiasm around you as well. And in the beginning, it's rare that everyone's going to quit their jobs, quit their day jobs. So what you end up doing is you're getting some folks that are all have this equal amount of commitment about working on off hours and weekends to kind of get a proof of concept or an MVP out the door. And then once you have that MVP, you can start to pitch it to investors and pitch it to clients and customers and see how things are going. However, yeah, I think that's the biggest piece is just getting the team together, and spending the time to do it right.
Cool. Absolutely. Well, we're coming up close to the end of our time today, Chris. So we've unpacked a lot of stuff there, and a lot of takeaways, I think, from for all of our audience, whether they be early stage founders or whether they be people slogging away, working the heavy lift within a SaaS startup. I guess like a question to finish off with would be what's, I guess, the biggest piece of advice you would maybe give yourself, actually, if you were to start all over again? Is there anything you would do differently? That's what I'd love to know.
Oh
Hindsight's a
man,
wonderful thing, I know, but is there anything you would maybe do?
that's such a great question. And I mean, the answer is a million things, right?
The biggest thing then, maybe.
The biggest single thing I would do, I I don't know if I have a clear answer for you right now. I the thing that I think really matters is it's coming to market as soon as possible. I think that you have these kind of precious windows of time where you have like kind of financial runways to get your stuff done. And I think it's easy to get sidetracked during that time. You can get lost in the weeds. You can be a little bit too perfectionist. You can chase down kind of ancillary and tertiary projects that aren't really core to what you're trying to do. I would just say stay super focused on like what is the basic product that you need to get out the door, and then get it out the door as fast as possible to get feedback so you can continue to iterate.
Fantastic, love it. And sorry, I know I put you on the spot there, but I thought it was a good question to finish on, because I know like mistakes are often what people learn the most from, whether they're their own or whether they're hearing other people's experience. So wanted to finish off with that.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, look, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of a podcast that I've had a wonderful time having a chat with you. I'm sure loads of people and our listeners out there have got some good value for this. So thank you so much for taking the time to share your experience and insights with us today.
Yeah, thank you. And for everyone who's curious, we are Visably with an A, so visably.com.
Fantastic. Visably.com. Go check it out. And Chris, thanks so much again. Thanks to all our listeners, and catch you again next time.